This is the It's Not So Late show with your host, Aaron Hanania, the voice of young America, interviewing celebrities, influencers, and exploring unique and interesting stories that you need to hear. And now, please welcome your host of the It's Not So Late show, Aaron Hanania!
I'm Aaron Hanania, and this is the It's Not So Late show, and today I am joined by magician Kody Hildebrand, and he's got some cool stuff he's done. He's won Connecticut's Got Talent. He's got over 500,000 followers on TikTok. Kody, thank you so much for being here, my friend.
Thank you for having me, buddy. It's a privilege.
And the first question I always like to ask, just to get it out of the way, I know everyone hates hearing it, is how did you get started in magic? That's always like the opening question we gotta ask.
Oh, sure. So I got started when I was like 7 years old. My first exposure to magic was a card trick that my grandfather showed me. And it was one of those really cool kind of like self-working tricks that you don't really need any sleight of hand for. As long as you follow the steps, the trick does itself. I would do that for years and years, and I tried learning a little bit more. And then when I tried to learn a little more advanced stuff, the plot was to make a quarter vanish from underneath a little handkerchief, and then would reappear inside of an orange. Super elaborate, super crazy. I was also like 8. So naturally, I just screwed up tremendously in front of my aunt. And when you're 8 years old and you make a critical mistake like that, you just give up in its entirety. So I stopped for a very long time. Fast forward to when I was 19, I ended up, for context, I'm now 27. So fast forward to when I was 19, I ended up going to visit who is now my wife when she was in college. And a friend of hers showed me another trick, did all the work for you as well. Loved it, showed me how it works. And it just kind of rippled into all of this. Next thing I knew, I have a show. I'm doing tricks all over the place. And then the rest is history.
That's so cool. So tell me about some of these places you've done shows. Do you have a favorite venue or a favorite gig that you've done?
Ooh. So I am a huge fan of doing Renaissance fairs now. I do a lot of Renaissance fairs, mostly in Connecticut. I don't really like to go outside of Connecticut right now. But those are always some of the best places for me to go just because of the environment and the people, and the crowds are always so welcoming. But I gotta say, like, I think I have the most freedom when I'm doing my own shows at like small local theaters, because I don't have to feel tied to dressing a certain way or behaving a certain way. Because like when you're at a Ren fair, you have to act and perform a certain way. I can just be me when I'm in a small theater, and I can just do my show the way that I want to do my show.
Right.
So
for those of the audience that may not be super familiar with your magic, there's different types of magic. There's mentalism, there's sleight, there's card tricks. What type of magic would you say is your niche?
my niche is close-up sleight of hand magic. I like magic that can be done literally just in a very close proximity with people. I like doing things with cards, coins. The cups and balls is by far my absolute favorite trick to perform. It's also my closer in my show, which I love. But I do basically just like a lot of stuff you can do with any kind of like everyday object, like a Sharpie marker or a deck of cards, rubber bands, stuff like that.
I like that. Now, how do you bring that to, so like I know for a Renaissance fair, that's really up close and personal. How do you translate that to when you're doing a bigger theater, where there's a lot of people and they all can't necessarily be right around, the table or the chair you're doing the magic on? What do you use as a technique to do that?
So what I like to do is I actually don't really have like set tricks that are better for one thing, better for another. Everything that I do can be done on a stage realistically. This is just like my natural like go-to niche. But like if I were to say do a card trick in like a small theater, the seating is what's probably the most important, because you can't have yourself up on a stage and everyone sitting underneath you. We would call that your audience looking up at you. You can't really do card tricks when people are looking up at you, because they're like your table's right here, their eyes are right here. They can't really see what's going on up here. So when I do small theaters and fairs and stuff, the seating is usually going down. So it's more like traditional stadium seating.
Okay.
So it allows them to look down and they can see everything that I'm doing. Plus, with a small theater, there's usually no more than like 6 rows
Right.
of seats. So you're not that far back. Even if you're in the far back of the theater, or what would be considered the far back of the theater, you can still see everything that I'm doing like perfectly.
Right.
So
Yeah, I like that idea. And now, since you perform in small theaters, do you like to attend other magicians' sets in smaller venues, or are you more a big venue type of person when you're watching magic?
mm, I gotta say the small theaters. I like going to the small theaters because I like the more intimate setting
Hmm.
kind of idea. I like just being able to go to a place where like either I know the guy, or in some cases I don't know the guy, but just be there and be in like close proximity and just watch.
Right. Do you have a favorite?
Um,
Do you have a favorite magician to watch?
I do, but he died in 2018.
No.
He is his name was Ricky J,
Oh yeah.
and he was by far one of the world's greatest magicians. He was widely considered to be a magician's magician.
Really?
Um, and he was taught by the late great Di Vernon, the late great Charlie Miller, and what I liked about him was he was also a magic historian. So he focused a lot on like the history of magic and where everything comes from and our whole like timeline and how everything's progressed. Um, and he would bring elements from that into his show. So he would actually take elements from these really old books, and he would use the patter from those books in this old um like the vernacular was basically that of like say a highly educated person from like the turn of the century, like the turn of the 20th century, and you couldn't help but feel like you were learning something while simultaneously being entertained. His work is just phenomenal.
And that's
Love it.
that's so hard to do too. It's trying to.
Hmm.
I don't think people realize that like magic isn't just hey I can do this card trick. It's more so the story. Like you have to explain. This is what a lot of magicians say is you have to be able to give people a reason why is this ace moving from my left hand to my right
Yep.
pocket and then magically back out again. And that's what's hard about
Yep.
magic. So is that sometimes pose a challenge for you? Is trying to give like validity behind like why cards are moving or why things are happening the way they are?
Yeah. Yeah, especially on social media,
Mhm.
because with TikTok is just a really good example, because with TikTok you're restricted to how many seconds you can make a video.
Right.
So you have a very finite amount of time to tell a story while also making something very special happen.
Mhm.
But when I'm on stage and time isn't really a factor, I can stretch something out that I can stretch something where like a punchline is like 20 seconds, and
Wow.
I can stretch that into like a full 7 minute like story routine, whatever,
Right.
and it goes over fantastically.
Wow. So how do you shorten that? Because I know you're on TikTok, so I do want to talk
Mhm.
about that and maybe what some of the differences are. But how do you condense a 7 minute routine into that 25-second punchliner like that?
Carefully, for lack of a better word, but um a lot of it is, if I'm being completely transparent, a lot of the patter is just BS. It's stuff that I just come up with off the top of my head that fits in the moment, and sometimes it takes a couple of takes because my mouth moves faster than my brain sometimes. So I'll stumble on my words, or I'll say something that doesn't make sense, or I'll do that thing that a lot of people with like ADHD do, like myself, where like we start to say one word and then we finish it with like another word, so we just make a brand new word entirely.
I'm known of doing that. That's what's hard about hosting these shows. You gotta be clear, you gotta be concise, and the Zoom delay does not help things out.
Yep, yep. Other times I've had really good experience. Like I had one video that went super viral like overnight, and I was so grateful for it. It was my linking rings routine.
Right.
And I think the reason why it did so well was because I took that like 8 minute routine. I took some of like just some of the best parts. condensed that into like 60 seconds. And I basically just took the pattern that I already used, and I just took a couple of those jokes, and then I told those jokes while I was doing the routine. But I'm also like talking a lot faster than I normally would too. But it got the point across. It got exactly what I wanted done, and it just came out as a great video. Others, it's just like, what am I saying? Why am I saying this? And yay, something special happened.
Speaking about TikTok, how did you get into TikTok? Because I love asking this question because everyone's story
Sure.
like so unpredictable. It's for some reason with TikTok, I've heard the weirdest things. So I'd love to know how you got into doing on the TikTok.
I got onto TikTok. I got onto TikTok because my wife would not stop sending videos to me. I wanted nothing to do with it at all. And the reason why I didn't want anything to do with it was because I thought that I was way too old for it. I thought no one wanted to see a 26-year-old or a 27-year-old on an app that's primarily for kids that are in high school or just going into college.
Right.
Like I walk in there, like if TikTok was a room, I would walk in like Steve Buscemi with that skateboard being like, "How do you do, fellow kids?" And yeah. And I decided, I'm like, you know what, fuck it, or excuse me, I've got the following, or not the following, I've got the material, I got the stuff that I can post, so I might as well just make like one video and just see how it goes. And that one video got like a couple hundred views.
Right.
And for me, a couple hundred views was something that was crazy. It was unheard of. The biggest following that I had was on Instagram at the time, and that was maybe like 400 people. Yeah. So I thought, you know what, maybe there could be something here. So I started posting more, and I started looking into, like what's the best way to go viral on TikTok? What are some of the tips and tricks to like do really well? And I ended up developing some bad habits with that. Mostly just like reposting a lot of the same stuff over and over and over again. But the other lessons that I took away from that, like hashtag strategies and using trending sounds, and maybe there's a trend going on that you can hop onto and use like a magic spin to it. That just really helped. And then I got lucky one day with that linking ring video, and the next thing I knew, I had over 200,000 followers.
Wow.
Which was great.
If I could ask, how many views did it get?
Right. So when I posted it, I remember this. It was the day before Thanksgiving. I actually posted it the night before, like right before I went to bed. And before I went to bed, it already had like 10,000 views.
Wow.
After like maybe 20 minutes. And I'm like, okay, this is doing something. This is kind of weird. So I went to bed. I wake up. I check my notifications, thinking, hey, maybe it just stopped after like 10,000 views. Maybe it got like 15,000, and that was it. My notifications said that I gained like 25,000 followers overnight.
Really?
And I'm like, excuse me?
Really?
I checked the video, and it had over 1 million views in like less than 12 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think now, if I were to guess, I think it's sitting at like 8-9 million views.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, I've only ever got just over 1 million. Like, it's like great. What did that feel like? When you woke up the next morning and you saw like 1 million views. For someone who said that 400 is like a lot.
Yeah.
Talking at 1,000 times that. What was that like?
Oh, it was unreal. It was unreal. Like, you hear people talking about walking on like cloud nine, and you're like, yeah, okay, sure. But like, no, it was a surreal kind of a feeling. And it was honestly something that like I never expected to happen. But the second it did, I could not have been more grateful.
Right. And how did it change your experience? Like, how did it change? What changed? So now you went from a magician that maybe not a lot of people know to someone who has 500,000 followers now. Does that change career path a little bit?
A little bit, yeah. I've always, once I got into Magic and I knew that it was something that I could make a career out of, I always knew that the end game was to do shows full time. Um, and doing doing social media now has completely changed everything too, because now I have a much broader reach. Now I have people all across, the United States, and now I even have followers that are in other countries that are like, we got to get you over here.
Wow.
And I'm like, that's insane. Um, like I've made amazing friends on this app as well, other magicians that I deeply respect and I love. And one of them is a phenomenal magician in Canada,
Really?
and he's like, turns out, like, if I wanted to take like an 8-hour road trip, I could just go and see him like right now.
Wow.
um and he's like, yeah, come on over, get you over here, just magic, booze, poutine, call it a day. I'm like, that's one hell of a weekend, like, let's do it.
I think with
um
TikTok, people don't realize that as much of it like an app, it's a really big networking tool. I
mhm.
think people don't take it responsibly, I guess, in that like they use
Yeah.
it the right way. They use it just to get viral, but it's like if you're if you're clever enough, you can do like what you did and network, make friends, collaborate. And these are people that now you would have never known. And the pandemic's help with Zoom and virtual things, whereas before
Mhm.
I'd have to go in person. And now with the click of a couple of buttons, here we are meeting from, I believe,
Right.
Connecticut. I'm in Chicago, like that. So
Yeah.
that helped you out, networking on TikTok. Has that opened some new doors for you? I know you mentioned your
Oh,
friend.
100%. 100%. I started, like I said, I started meeting a whole bunch of people, and I started talking to people I never thought that I would ever get the chance to like talk to or anything like that. And they're all like, yeah, we would love the chance to like work with you. We would love to like have you like, talk about our brand and stuff like that. I had a math app reach out to me that wanted me to kind of promote them for a little while, and I did, and it was great. And I never would have gotten that if it weren't for the fact that like TikTok helped me grow and create
Right.
a brand of some kind.
Right, and that's always fun. So, can you talk about some of these brand deals you've done, with Magic, and how you put a magical
Yeah.
twist to it? Because it's a lot more difficult than people think. If they hand you, here's this coffee mug, I want you to promote it. You have to do it in a way where you're
Right.
also saying, buy my coffee mug. You have to do it with like, we're gonna make a
Right.
card or something appear in this coffee mug. By the way, you can buy it. That's hard to do. So, can you share
Hmm.
some of the things that you have done?
Yeah. So the math app is a really good example. They wanted to just talk about math and just the features that the app offers, and like stuff like that. And the best way that I could think of was the fact that like every time you shuffle a deck of cards, the probability of you getting an order that has already existed is practically slim to none.
Really?
So every time you shuffle cards, you are getting a factorial of 52 possibilities, which means 52 times 51 times 50 and going all the way down to one. Huge number. I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but it's a very, very large number, and that's the number of different possible shuffle outcomes that you can possibly get um, when you mix up a deck of cards. So I talked about that, and I'm shuffling a deck of cards the entire time, and the end result was when I was done shuffling, the cards remained in like perfect brand new
Wow.
order. Hmm.
Wow. Is that a trick you learned yourself? You taught yourself that over time?
Yeah, so I ended up studying a bunch of different methods of magic from a bunch of different resources, and I finally decided to dive down the rabbit hole of just card sleight of hand. It's like the book itself is called Expert at the Card Table, and it is widely regarded by magicians as like the holy grail of card mechanics and card cheating. And it was actually originally designed for um, sleight of hand mechanics, just so they could fix a card game.
Really?
That's it. Yeah. But now magicians have adopted that for entertainment purposes. And it was something that I always wanted to go down and study and learn and practice. And I finally started going down that rabbit hole, and I am still in that rabbit hole. And it's been about 3-4 months since I started.
Wow.
There's just a lot of information to go through.
I want to talk about that. Is like There's a lot of people that I know that are going to be watching this that want to go into magic, and I ask this to every magician I have. Where do you recommend they get started? What are some resources? Because it's not as easy as you think to, because magicians don't reveal what they do. So where can people learn,
Right.
like the beginner stuff?
So, so going off of what you said, good magicians, they'll never reveal the tricks that they do, but specifically, they won't reveal the tricks like during the performance.
Mhm.
That's where the whole like a magician never reveals their secret comes from, because we don't want to like make an elephant vanish and then strip away like the curtain, so to speak, and be like, oh, it was over here the whole time, because that just ruins that kind of mystery and wonder. However, because magicians rely on secrecy, does not mean that they're not huge proprietors of education, because they are. Magicians absolutely love teaching, and we love the chance to get new magicians anytime that we possibly can. So that having been said, there's hundreds of thousands of resources that you can use to get into magic. The best place for like bare bone, I have no experience and I just want to learn a couple of things, is YouTube. YouTube is going to be a great resource for the super beginner stuff. And then once you've finally decided, like, okay, I've got this stuff, and I think now it's time to start learning more. Now it's time to start really growing and building and getting better. That's when I would start to recommend that like they turn to like books and the DVDs and the downloads. This is where the sort of like paying for your education starts to come into play, which a lot of people aren't actually fans of. A lot of people actually have this idea that like just because like there's a lot of people that expose how magic tricks work, and there's a lot of people that just go around willy-nilly just giving away how magicians do their stuff, that they have this sense of entitlement to all of our information for free.
Right.
But the reality of the situation is that the good stuff you're gonna pay for,
Right.
but it's worth it. That's the thing. You're paying to broaden your knowledge. You're paying to build a skill set that no one else can have.
Mm-hmm.
And I would highlight, like, I think the best books to start probably would be the Card College series.
Yeah.
Great place to start if you want to get into card magic. Coin magic, I'm not as deep rooted in. However, I know that there's hundreds of books out there on coin magic, like Rubinstein's Coin Magic is a wonderful book on coin work. And then there's also the whole Tarbell course of magic too. If you can find a book on Tarbell, you are set for life. There's just so much that you can go off of in those books too. And a lot of these books too have video adaptations for people that are much better at learning visually instead of just from reading, like me.
Right. So I want to.
So
What has been the most difficult to learn skill to learn? Because you do a lot of magic is learned by reading, which people don't realize that's what it is. Sometimes there's photos, sometimes there's not. So what do you think has been the biggest challenge for you in your magical career so far?
ooh. I think right now the most difficult thing has been going down this Erdnase rabbit hole that I've been going down, the expert at the card table, because these are sleights that I've only ever seen like the best of the best do, and now I'm starting to put my foot in their water, and just watching the demonstrations alone is very intimidating, and it genuinely almost makes me want to like not learn it just because of how hard it looks.
Right.
But then it also comes down to like the repetition, the practice, and just really like trying to push yourself. So like right now, a lot of that like card demonstration stuff and card cheating really puts a lot into perspective. So like right now, just to give you like a good example, I'm just separating out a deck of cards, red cards from black cards, just to make things easy enough to follow. So if I were to bring this down for you to see really quick,
Sure.
you can see I was able to separate these guys, black on one side, red on the other. So if I were to give these cards some good thorough shuffles.
Mm-hmm.
Standard procedure in a casino would follow one riffle, two riffles, and then one more set of riffle shuffles. And then once you're done with that third set, you would follow it up with either, say, a cut or a series of cuts.
Ooh.
And once you follow those cuts up, the deck normally should be shuffled, except we keep all the blacks on one side, all the reds on the other, and nothing is really disturbed. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, that took a lot. That took a lot
That's
to learn.
really impressive. People never. That is very cool. Now, why do casinos like those? They like those side riffles instead of the traditional shuffle. Do you know why that is?
Uh, I don't have like a perfect knowledge of it. I know that it's a really decent way is to prevent cheating.
Okay.
Even though I just proved otherwise, but a lot of casinos don't want you to be able to like peek at cards when you're shuffling so you can like stack them, or they don't want you to know where any of the cards are, like even just doing like a standard like a wash, like it, you just want to keep it like as fair as possible.
Right.
um
I swear, if those cards are in order, I'm gonna be really, really frustrated.
Man, I'll be impressed if they're in order, like good lord. I mean, they're not, but like I would have been very impressed if they were myself. But casinos have their standard practices and their standard like rules and guidelines just to prevent any kind of like cheating or keeping everything fair. You're not, nowadays in a casino, everything is so airtight, you are not going to find anybody cheating in a casino whatsoever. Except for maybe the players, but that's why they have pit bosses. That's why they have people there to like keep track of everything. But casino dealers, they're not going to do anything like that.
Right, because I mean, they're so regulated. So do you think that some magicians do have a leg up in casinos? Do you think that your practice and knowing how cards work, knowing how to handle cards, has given you a slight advantage to the random guy that just walks in off the streets, in Vegas?
I mean, I think it'll give me some kind of an advantage because now I understand how cards behave, and I understand, and by that I mean like how cards shuffle, how cards orientate themselves, the way that they're ordered, the way that they like put themselves when you shuffle them. I understand like tracking, I understand cutting, I understand um, basically shuffle location, and for lack of a better term. Um, but when I go to play, like I don't play poker when I go to a casino. I strictly play blackjack because that is an easier, in my opinion, a much easier game to win.
Right.
Because realistically, you're playing against the casino, and the dealers don't care at all if the casino loses. So, because it's not their money, why should they care? So they want you to win. But what they'll do is you'll watch the cards, and it's realistically just a game of like high low. Like if you like this next card's going to be higher than this one, or this next card's going to be higher than this one, or this next card's going to be lower than this one. And I've walked out with like, I've walked into games with maybe like $40 in my pocket and walked out with almost 1,000.
Wow.
Yeah, just because of knowing what a card is going to be. And it's not even counting. Like I don't know how to count cards. I'm just really good with like patterns.
Well, I know who I'm bringing along with my Vegas trip when I go to Vegas. I'm bringing you.
You got it, man. You got it. Just say the word. I got you.
We'll split it. We'll split. Now, do you have any favorite Vegas headliner magicians that you like?
Matt King.
Oh,
Hands down. Matt King. Gotta love him. One of the funniest guys you are ever going to see. He's a veteran in the magic industry, and he's definitely earned his place on the Vegas Strip. I'm also a huge fan of Penn and Teller, which surprises a lot of people because I very actively preach against revealing tricks for the sake of clout, and everyone's like, but Penn and Teller, they reveal everything. They really don't, which is hilarious. They reveal like the most minute secret to better serve like this bigger thing that they just never reveal.
Right.
So I love Penn and Teller, and I love the genius like just the brilliance behind that kind of a concept. I like Copperfield, but I don't like big illusions.
Okay.
I don't like the whole like kind of essence in magic. I hate that. I hate it so much. But I if I had to pick one person to go see in Vegas, it would hands down be Matt King. Like hands down.
Do you have a favorite routine of his that you like that he does?
Oh God, I've got so many.
Top three?
So he does a cut and restored rope
Oh,
that I love, and the best part about it is that it fools Teller
really?
every time he sees it. Yeah, they actually talked about it on Fool Us when Matt King went on for a second time, because he brought out the rope and he's like, we're not going to do that. And when it came down to like Penn and Teller to like actually talk to him, Penn said, the rope trick always fools Teller every single time. And I just thought that was hilarious. But it's a really, really good adaptation of like what's effectively a beginner's magic trick. I love his fish routine that he does. He does this routine where he's just air fishing, and then like he's like, oh yeah, I caught you can't see anything, but he's like, yeah, I caught your goldfish, and then he like plops like a legit goldfish into like a glass. It's beautiful. I love that so much.
Wow.
Yeah.
And those are hard to do with animals. Anything with live, animals that can go real wrong real quick, that's hard to do.
I have so much respect for guys that do animal magic, because it's just really hard to like do everything you're doing while also managing another like living creature with its own like sentience, basically. Because like a bird's going to do whatever a bird wants to do, and like a rabbit is going to want to do whatever a rabbit wants to do. Like you really got to train those things to like properly behave. Like I've been trying to get a routine done, like a modified version of the cups and balls. I've been trying to do one with my hedgehog that I have, but he's so temperamental and does not like being touched.
Oh.
So like I can't do anything with him, because like if I try to, he'll just like stab my hand.
Now I have a fun question here. But magicians like watching. Is there a magician that like a trick that you just want to know how it's done, but you genuinely don't know, that it's like bothers you? Because every magician is always bothered by that one trick.
Oh. And I actually learned how to do it this year, which was hilarious. It was actually the opening number that Ricky Jay does in all of his shows. He calls it the same trick 3 ways.
Oh.
And he'll start by producing 4 queens out of a deck, and he'll do it 2 different ways. The first way, he says, is like a flashy style, representative of that from like the 1970s. The second way is something a bit more flashy that you might have seen done by like a European. Okay. And then the third way is a version that you might see in like a drawing room at the turn of the century. And what he does is he sets the 4 queens in like 4 separate corners of a table, like one in each corner. And he'll take 3 cards, place them on top of 1 queen, 3 cards, place them on another, 3 on another, and then 3 on another. And then one by one, those queens all vanish inside those other cards, and they all appear together with the last queen. And it's just so beautifully done. Yeah.
Wow. That is
so good.
I think I've actually seen that trick. I don't remember. It might be him. Those ones, you have so much respect for how they do it. I'm not going to give it away, but just to be able to do it consistently, in front of an audience. And if you do one thing wrong, especially with ones where there's a lot of math involved, or manipulating, a lot of different things you have to be moving around. There's so many chances for something to go wrong. Like Shin Lim is one of those people where he does so many moves in a single act that, like, if he does one thing wrong, the whole act is, that's what's hard about magic. So is that something that challenges you when you're doing a really complicated routine, that you fear, like, oh gosh, if I put that card in the wrong place, or if this happens?
Well, I'm definitely no Shin Lim, for sure. my tricks are definitely not that elaborate, and my magic doesn't need to be that elaborate.
Right.
Shin's style of performing is very poetic and very storytelling-esque, whereas mine is it's more based in like the classics of magic, but I also base it in comedy too.
Right.
So like when I was learning how to really like get my performance style down, like I had experience on stage. I was a theater kid in my last couple of years of high school. And then I was also really into like just making people laugh. I just like making people laugh. So I thought maybe I would try surrounding myself with comedians, and I could see how stand-up comedians handle themselves. So now I have like a stand-up set that I do, and I'll incorporate stand-up with magic while I'm on stage.
Like
and that's just my style. So now I can do like not a basic trick, but I could do something that's pretty simple to learn, and I give it like a full like comedy routine behind it, and suddenly it's like a really fun interactive piece of magic that I can do with somebody on stage. It's great.
I like that. Now, before we go, I have 2 more questions. Maybe you can perform that a couple of tricks here, and then I also want you to tell us where can people find you. Plug your social media here, and because so they can watch.
So yeah, so you can find me. Oh God, my main socials that I use are TikTok and Instagram. All of my socials you can find me using the name Hildebrand Magic.
Okay.
And you can find me on YouTube as well with that name. I have a Facebook account that I use called Hildebrand Magic. I also have a Twitter account, but my Twitter account is dead. I never use Twitter whatsoever. I actually think somehow my Twitter got accidentally linked to my brother's, because I just go on to check and suddenly I have all these posts and like shares and retweets from the New Jersey Devils, and I'm like, what the heck? I didn't post any of that. It's just a bunch of like hockey paraphernalia, and I'm like, I definitely don't do sports. Like, look at my career choice. I do not do sports at all. Yeah, so basically it's YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Hildebrand Magic. Those are the best ones to go find me on.
Sweet. And then before we go, would you be able to do a trick or two here for our audience?
Absolutely. Yeah, I got a couple things that I feel like I could do for you. So I'm a huge card guy, so I figured we'd do a couple of card things.
Sounds good.
This first one is probably one of my absolute favorites, and this is also something that I just added into my show, just because of how much fun I think it can be. This is going to use a very peculiar deck of cards. You're going to notice that there's nothing printed
Right.
on these cards. This is actually a truly blank deck all the way down to the bottom card. Now, what makes this trick special is the fact that this really allows like your imagination to come into play. Right? You can literally just choose any card you want, but you know what? I feel like one isn't really going to cut it. So what I'll have you do for me, bud, is if you could actually just name any three cards you want.
Okay,
we'll do it one at a time. One at a time.
Sure. 8 of diamonds.
8 of diamonds. Okay, so naturally, like in an imaginary deck, like it doesn't really matter where you grab them from. However, I feel like the 8 of diamonds, if I had to guess, would be placed like right here.
Sure.
So I'm gonna set that down. I'll let you see that.
Okay.
Next up, which one would you like next?
Middle, Ace of Spades.
You got to go the classics. Ace of Spades. That would usually be all the way down here. So we'll put the Ace of Spades right there. So 8 of diamonds, Ace of Spades, and which one else? One more.
Clubs. The Jack of Clubs.
Jack of Clubs. That's a wonderful choice. The Jack of Clubs, I would say, is usually kept more in like the middle of the deck. Let me see here. I think that one should do. Okay. So that felt pretty fair, right? You could have chosen any 3 that you wanted. We didn't really prearrange anything, right? And you really could have chosen anything out of this deck. Every single card in here, completely blank. However, you chose 3 cards off the top of your head: the 8 of diamonds, the Ace of Spades, and the Jack of Clubs. So if I were to take these 3 cards and just kind of go on 3 and just go 1, 2, 3, that should be your 8 of diamonds. That's your Ace of Spades, and that is your Jack of Clubs.
Well done. Oh, come on. That is too clean. What? Oh my goodness. Are you sure you don't want to do all
Oh, that's
52?
yeah. I mean, I could if you really wanted me to, but I don't think we got time for that.
No. Oh,
Um,
beautiful trick.
the last one that I wanted to do for you, I actually have right here. I'm going to leave this deck in plain sight. This is a completely different deck of cards, and the only reason why I'm using a different one is because this one I was able to place just a small prediction in.
Okay.
But we'll get back to that in a second. Just note that one card is going to end up looking a little bit different from the others. Just later on. Once again, you are going to have complete free reign as to which card you would like to pick.
Sure. Do I pick one?
Yeah, please. I'll tell you what. We'll make it a little bit more interesting. Let's do like a process of elimination.
Sure.
So you have red cards and you have black cards.
Let's go black.
Black. Okay, all the red cards are gone.
Yeah.
So inside of the black cards, because those are the ones you wanted, right?
Mhm.
So inside the black cards, you have clubs and spades. Spades are going to look like this. Clubs are going to look like this. Which one would you prefer?
We'll take a club.
A club. Beautiful. So ace through king, you have all of those amazing choices. Which club would you like the most?
Let's say the two of clubs.
Two of clubs. All right. Hang on to that thought. I'm going to put these cards right here. I am not going to touch them. I am not going to do anything. With this deck of cards right here, you chose the two of clubs?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay.
Yeah.
I have the two of clubs right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take this, I'm going to put it right back into the middle, right? Square up the cards. I'm going to give them a couple of shuffles, right? Now, when I shuffle these cards, it's very important to know that these two decks are going to be linked, right? I'm going to give these cards a couple more cuts just to make sure everybody's nice and mixed up. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to try something a little unconventional. I don't recommend you do this. I'm going to shuffle some of these cards face up and some of these cards face down, okay?
Yeah.
So when I shuffle these cards, you're going to see that some of these are going to be face up, some of these are going to be face down. I'll show you in a second. You square up the cards, right? And you're going to see that some of these guys are going to be just very discombobulated, very unorganized. Personally, with my OCD, it's driving me nuts. However, yeah, I know, give them a couple of cuts. This way you can see some of these are going to be front to back. Others are going to be back to front. Others are going to be, say, front to front, back to back. It's just a jumbled up mess, right?
Right.
However, if you watch these cards closely and I kind of shift them up like that, you're going to notice that now every card is going to be repositioned, right? Every card is going to end up fixing themselves, except for your two of clubs. But here's the thing, because remember, I told you these cards are linked together, right? These two decks are linked together. You truly could have chosen any card you wanted out of this deck, but you chose the two of clubs, right?
Yeah.
So if I were to go through this deck right here, you can see all of my cards are all going to be face up, right? All of these cards were face down. However, if we were to flip it over, all of these would be face up. This would be the only one that's face down.
Right.
So if I were to go through all of these guys, right?
Yeah.
And just go through, you can see how I'm going to have one card that is face down among all the others as well. You really could have picked anyone in the world. You ended up picking the two of clubs.
Yeah.
That's so weird.
I got no words for that
That's so weird.
one. I'm not even gonna.
Well, I'm glad you picked that one. That's for sure. I've done that 51 other times today. It's the first time that worked. So thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Kody Hildebrand. Check him out. You can see him on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and you can even catch him at some local Renaissance fairs if you're in the Connecticut region. Kody, thank you so much for being here, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me, buddy. I appreciate it.